From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven Erlandson, takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
It's a great day to be alive. Yes, it is, people. And we are alive together today, giving joy for life and breath one more day. Whatever state you are in, it's great to have you here with us. We're all on the journey together, right? We're on our own individual journeys and we're sharing the journey together. So whether you're checking in from Budapest or California, Hilo, Hawaii, or any place else, especially the Deutsche Leute heute, it's great to have you here. And Scandinavia, we have actually a very large Scandinavian contingent. We check our analytics all the time for the show. I think top of the list is Norway, second Sweden, third, I want to say Denmark, and then Finland, and I think Netherlands is right in there, even though they're not Scandinavia.
Probably your influence and not mine.
Oh, I don't know, Rob. They like smart people up in Scandinavia. That's why they're listening to you. I am joined in studio by that fellow you just heard, Casey over in the booth, but then that fellow, Rob the Rocket, today. Rob, I want to hear what you have to say today.
Good day. You know, when we do these lightning rounds, we check in people before we start recording, and that's one of my favorite parts of the show, just hearing from where everybody's coming from,
Agreed.
what they're saying. We get a little back and forth, and sometimes they even come back for the show. I love that.
I do too. It's fun. It's fun. And so we got a lot of people in from all over the place. It's really neat today. As per usual. I always used to just say as usual, but in Mary Poppins, she says as per usual, which I don't understand. It must be a British thing. So then I guess I watched too much Mary Poppins. Here we go. Advice for a friend in an emotionally abusive marriage who feels numb and feels she can't leave. Anytime you're feeling emotionally numb, almost always, it's from emotional overload. You're shutting it down because it's too much, right? It's interesting. A child's brain actually does that naturally, which is why a lot of people say, I don't even remember my childhood, Sven, or I only remember a few things from childhood. What do I do? That's happening. The child just has a natural protective mechanism that'll either forget those things or it will craft a narrative to basically make it make sense, normalize it, or deny it. Okay? So in this case, your friend is numb because it's too much. They don't want to touch it. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to feel it. And who can blame them? If you're in an abusive marriage at all, but especially for a long time, yeah, you don't want to feel it. You're hurting. You feel betrayed. You feel hurt. You feel angry. You feel rage. You feel sadness. You feel all sorts of things. And that advice for the friend that I would tell you simply, and the person may not like it or want to do the work, but they have to start going into all those feelings. They have to start getting them out. If for no other reason, then their decision-making will be greatly hampered, skewed, or go in the absolute wrong direction if they are operating strictly from a place of emotion. We always make our worst decisions when we're strung out or high-strung on high emotion or shut down from all emotion because there's so much in there. That person needs to start getting that stuff out. Now, I give tools here on this show for how to do that. You guys have heard me say them a million times, but the bottom line is that's what your friend has to do. And she feels she can't leave. That has to be gone into with her therapist or herself on her own, in her own self-help work. It can't leave is a tricky little statement. And because it can be, well, for financial reasons, I can't leave. Or, there's kids and I fear for the kids. Or there are all sorts of reasons a person may feel that they can't leave. But one of the things I've found in counseling people sort of longitudinally over 30 years is that very often when someone feels they can't leave, 10 years later when they finally do leave, or 4 years or 15 years, they say, damn it, I should have left earlier. Even though I thought I couldn't, I should have left a long time ago. And so very often when someone says they can't leave, more often than not, it's that they're terrified of leaving. They have fears and it would be very hard, whether emotionally or financially or whatever, but it's not usually that they cannot. And so in all likelihood, what she is expressing is immense fear, and she needs to find the origins of that, what the real fears are. And that's what, hopefully a therapist would help her do that. And I would recommend that. Next question. When dating and someone gets mad because you send them a picture and share it with others also, I'm going to read this. If I'm reading this wrong, Rob, tell me, or Jenny, feel free. All the questions scroll by pretty quickly for me. But when dating and someone gets mad because you send them a picture and share it with others also. No question stated. I'm going to imply, what do you do when somebody gets mad? So in other words, the person isn't feeling special. If it was just for me, you'd send it to just for me. But since you send it to everyone, I don't feel special. So one quick correct is occasionally send them a picture of just where you're just sending it to them. Kind of a quick fix there. You might want to just ask them, what hurts the most about it when I do that? Ask them. Get them to begin to articulate their feelings, right? Because just going too mad, you said they get mad. That says they're instantly going to anger and not saying, this hurts my feelings. Remember, anger is a response to pain, past pain, present pain, or potential future pain, right? The fear of pain. And so it hurts them. And you want to be in a relationship with someone who articulates their feelings, not just reacts at a high charge level, which is what anger generally is. So you need to say to them, what are you feeling right now? I'm angry. Okay. But you're angry. What is it that hurts the most about this? And you want to begin to train them. Rob, you have something to say.
Well, that other person is thinking, I don't want to be seen with you so publicly. So either they don't think it's as serious a relationship as the other person does, or maybe there's somebody else involved that they don't want to see the two of them together. Who knows?
But the question was, when I take a picture, I send it to my lover and other people.
Yeah, so it goes out in public that the two of them, perhaps it's a picture of the two of them.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
Well, then let's address that one as well. So I take a picture of us. We're out, having dinner. I take a picture of us. He wants a copy of it, or she wants a copy of it. So I send my partner the copy. But then I also send it to Susie, Bonnie, Ben, and Clyde. That's fair. Well, then, you got to ask them, is it a privacy issue? Is that what it is? That you don't want people knowing our fucking business? Well, then because I already addressed the one that maybe they don't feel special. And that I assumed you were taking pictures of yourself, like, hey, I'm out on my bike today. Look at me. I am enjoying the beach on my bike. And then you're sending it to a bunch of people so they wouldn't feel special. But Rob raised a really good point that it's pictures of the two of you. They don't want, maybe they have privacy issues or just don't want people to know your business. They have every right to not want that. They have every right to want to be private. However, you have every right to want to be private or to want to be more public or share your relationship with others. So we're at an impasse in a relationship. We're two people who have equal right to want what they want. He's not wrong. He or she isn't wrong for wanting that. You're not wrong for wanting to share it. And if either person is shaming the other person and saying, you shouldn't want that, you shouldn't want privacy, or you shouldn't want to send it to the other person, it's like, whoa, you're overstepping your bounds here, dude. That's just a want. It's something I want to do now. But if it's creating a problem for you, well, then we got to have this discussion, which it obviously is. And so then you two need to be able to actually talk without the high charged emotions. Here we are again, folks. It always comes to the shit that mucks up conversation. It's not about communication. People say, oh, the essence of any great relationship is communication. No, it's not. No, it's not. Communication is a biggie, don't get me wrong. But in this case, the communication isn't the issue per se. It's the hypercharged emotions. It's the wounded feelings that are blocking us being able to communicate. And it's those high charged emotions that very often not kill or undermine our relationships. So you guys got to begin to have low charge conversations about this so that you can reach some sort of compromise. But the only way you're going to do it is if he gets his feelings out. And if he can do it with you in a calm way, great. Otherwise, he needs to do it with his therapist or in his own journaling, or write you a letter first that he doesn't give to you before you guys come and have these conversations. And you need to get out your charges as well. Next question. All righty. That was good. Good save there, Rob. I didn't consider that.
Could have gone either way.
Could have. That's it. All right. How do I deal with co-parenting with an ex? Okay, first of all, co-parenting with an ex. I get those questions a lot. It's a big issue for a lot of people. And, divorce and so forth. She asks, how do I deal with a co-parenting with an ex that was abusive, that flips rapidly between threatening to keep the child from me, trying to flirt with me at drop-offs, and flaunting public displays with his current girlfriend? Clearly, this person wants your attention. All right? They're not only threatening to keep the child from you, it's just like, and that's not cool. And you got to maintain your cool, and you got to be firm. You got to be so fucking firm. Don't back down. Do not back down. You have to be firm and stand up for yourself and just keep it on business. When it comes to the child, keep it on business and don't worry about the threats to keep the child from you. You will address that. You'll cross that You'll cross that bridge when you come to it. All right. It's threat. They're trying to put you in your place, make you feel fear, make you do what they want. Don't give in to that. You have to be strong. Second, flirt with me at drop-offs. Clearly, this person is wanting attention. Question is, are you engaging in the flirting in any way whatsoever? Because if you are furthering it. You got to stop. Hard lines, hard boundaries, and flaunting public displays with his current girlfriend. What do you care? It's interesting you even included that one in the thing. Why do you care if he's flaunting, quote unquote, his girlfriend? I'm not scolding. I'm just saying, isn't it interesting that you include that? Well, I understand you're trying to categorize his behavior, describe his behavior. But my follow-up question on that would be, does it bother you? What do you feel specifically when he, quote unquote, flaunts his public displays with his current girlfriend? By you using the word flaunts, it implies that it digs you a little bit, that you feel a little bit set off by it. No, I could be off on that. But if you are feeling set off by it, then now we know what the real issue is. The real issue is you still have ties to him. Part of you potentially wants him. Why would you care if he flaunts public displays of his current girlfriend? You don't link that at all to the kids, that somehow that's bad for the kids or anything like that. Now, if that could be, if the kids are struggling with it, well, then you need to have conversations with your children. Ask them how they feel and give them a place to get out their feelings without feeling like you're trying to fix them. If that's the issue of the flaunting, then it's a kid's issue. And in the case of the other things, him threatening you and flirting with you, you got to cut that shit off. But if the flaunting in any way strikes an emotional chord inside of you, you still have ties to him, and likely a part of you still wants him or wants something from him, such as approval or wanting him to be nice to you or him wanting you or something along those lines, in which case you are, if not overtly, you are covertly telegraphing to him that you're still interested in him, which in fact then gives him power over you. Rob?
Here's a question on YouTube from Narwhal, and this is interesting. This is a male writing in. Mm-hmm. My spouse wants a physical sexual release without intimacy. I've been trying to relate my need for intimacy with her, and she says she doesn't feel safe with creating the type of connection that I want.
Is it spouse?
Yeah, that's what he says, spouse.
So, and if I'm hearing you correctly, fundamentally she wants to masturbate but not engage with me sexually. Is that right, Rob?
Or not necessarily. It could be the two of them. Wants a sexual release without intimacy, it says here. It could be. You could have that right.
That would be it. Okay. Rob, help me out here. And how would you have a sexual release without intimacy? So I want you to sort of...
You may be right.
Give me a hand job or something like that.
I guess so.
Because I don't know how that would come without intimacy. And we're not being belligerent here to the person asking this question. We're genuinely trying to sort out what you're saying. And Carly the cat, if you're watching on YouTube, Carly is weighing in on this. Yep, exactly. She's right all over Rob's studio mixing board. And so fundamentally the question then is, what do I do? My wife basically doesn't want to be intimate with me. She wants to have sexual release, but she doesn't want to be intimate with me.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and Mike, I'm going to assume you've obviously already talked about this, so this has been discussed with your wife, and your needs, your desires for intimacy with your wife are being rebuffed. And for those of us who are a bit older in life, we've all been there in one form or another. This conversation, this problem on one side or the other of this conversation, and it's ugly and it's hard. It's hard. I've gone through times in my life where I haven't wanted to have sex or haven't wanted the intimacy, and I've had relationships where I wanted it with someone, they haven't wanted it with me. And so what do? You make your needs known as you've done, and you continue to make your needs known. And if the person continues to resist or rebuff, you have to recommend that we get a professional to help us sort this through. Because obviously this person isn't interested in your wants. Go ahead.
He says, I feel used with each sexual encounter.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then it is being done collectively, and you're feeling used. And the truth is, no one has a right to use you, my friend. No one has a right to make you feel used. Now, the fact that you keep doing it says that you are wanting to make your spouse happy, wanting your spouse to be happy sexually within the context of the relationship. All right, so you are somehow manually or digitally, stimulating your partner or something along those lines, and you have been okay with it, but your needs are not being met and you are feeling used. Therefore, honestly, here's what it is. You guys have heard me say before, children shout loudest when feeling heard least. Children, countries, people, or in this case, a relationship, that sometimes we have to up the volume, and I'm using the word volume metaphorically. We have to up the volume of our voice in order to be heard and insist that our needs be met. So in this case, it sounds like you've been accommodating. It sounds like you've obviously had the conversations with your spouse, but at this point, there has to be meat on the request. There has to be, unfortunately, there has to be some sort of stick. There's a carrot. What's the stick? In other words, there has to be consequence for her not meeting it. And if you are trying to engage the problem through conversation, and we need to talk about this, and we need to get someone get someone to help us sort through this problem. If you are offering those and the person is still, and encouraging those, but the person is still saying no, 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 then in all honesty, cut them off. You are under no obligation to quote unquote service someone sexually and to not get your needs met in the relationship. I mean, think about this. How would we be answering this question or considering this question differently, Rob, if it were a female asking this question about her husband? Go ahead, Rob.
Here's a bit of explanation here. Narwhal Up adds, we started with a master-type dynamic, so it was a bit of a dominant-submissive relationship.
She's the dom, he's the sub.
Apparently.
You're right. Okay, yeah, and then clearly that isn't working for you. So the mere fact that you even had a dom-sub relationship, a dominant-submissive relationship, says you talked about it at one point. All right?
He's the master, he says.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, that's what it says.
Oh, and so the master in this case is not getting his needs met. And so the idea of using that position, that rank, so to speak, to your benefit is out of the question, which implies she's actually the master. She's got the power. And to be very honest with you, if you've reached the point where you are dom sub, I'm willing to bet that you've had conversations right at the beginning to set this sort of pattern. I'm betting you've talked about it. And those conversations are necessary again because you're wanting a reset. And you are wanting to make a more equitable type relationship or an inversion of the process or an augmentation to the process to your sexual life. First of all, I applaud you guys for having these conversations. So many couples can't have these conversations. It's too scary, too painful. But the hard conversation is necessary, and most importantly, you have to understand your needs matter, and you have to stand up, and there has to be a price, because if someone won't do it out of kindness, see, the best relationships, you guys, are the ones where you say your needs, you talk about it, and one or both person's needs are being met or compromised towards. But if a person won't talk about the issues with you and listen, now we've got a relationship where someone's being an asshole, where someone is taking advantage, such as in this case with you two sexually. Rob, one more follow-up, then we're going to move on to a new question.
Well, he sums it up quite succinctly, saying she is topping from the bottom.
Oh, yeah. I have been with such lovers, and can be delightful in the end for all parties. But in the end, if it's not meeting your needs, it's not meeting your needs. That's the bottom line, or the top line, and as it were. Well played, Sven. Thank you.
It was, actually.
Thank you. It spit out of me. I would love to say I planned that, but I didn't. All right. So we're going to move on, buddy. But you got to have those conversations, and you got to stand up for yourself, and there's got to be a price, because sometimes, unfortunately, some people only respond when there's a price. And it sucks to have to live that way, But the truth is, it's part of life that we have to be willing to stand up for ourselves. All right. I'm bad at negotiating with when we have folks come in to work on the house or, work on trees, take down trees on my property or what have you. I'm bad at negotiating just because I don't like, it's the one area of my life I don't like. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't like standing up for myself. I don't know what's okay. I know nothing about business. And so I always let my girlfriend handle those, and she's a killer. So we all have areas where we don't like talking out. But if your needs aren't being met, especially when it comes to the most intimate relationship of your life, you have every right, and you have to begin to stand up for yourself. Much, much, much more to come right after this short break.
I had a really good start in my life, and I've been successful in my career, but I have to say I've learned so much and improved my outlook on life since I met Sven and picked up a copy of Badass Wisdom. With the daily meditations as journaling prompts, I've uncovered a lot of memories that weren't totally pleasant. With Sven's guidance, I've achieved some new understanding, and honestly, I feel lighter. Badass Wisdom is a great read in nice small bites, and I think anyone can benefit from it. So go to badasscounseling.com and get the book or the audiobook. It could change your life.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform, and is not medical advice. back to the badass.
Hello, guys. It's good to have you back. We are doing our lightning round episode, and we have lots of great questions. We have folks checking in from everywhere. It's really great to have everyone here. I want to make a special note. Only once in the 2-year history of the Badass Counseling Show podcast have we had a guest on the show that we actually interviewed. I don't interview guests. We're just here to provide counseling and answer people's questions for regular folks. But that one guest, I got some news. That one guest, if you haven't heard the episode, we did a 3-part series with Command Chief Master Sergeant Jeremy Hardy. In his time in the U.S. military, he was the top-ranked Special Forces operator in the entire United States Air Force. He is a dear friend of mine, and he has been going through cancer treatments because he took a sniper bullet to the face many years ago, or shrapnel, ricocheted and went into his face, and that bullet was irradiated beforehand or at some point, and so that means he has cancer of the face, osteosarcoma. And we've gotten some really hard news this last week about our dear friend Jeremy, that he's struggling. And so I asked for thoughts, prayers, warmth, love out in the universe to Texas, to our dear friend Jeremy. Love him dearly. And if you have any well wishes, please feel free to post them in the Badass Counseling group on Facebook if you're in the group, or into Badass Counseling on Facebook or on our website. Please do, and we will pass those along to Jeremy Hardy. He's a dear, dear, big-hearted man. Just love him to death. All right. Karen on Facebook asks, and this I'm going to read part of it, asks, how do I convince my 20-year-old son to go to counseling? He was abused throughout his childhood, mentally and emotionally, and ... Okay, presumably sexually. He has a lot of anxiety. He rarely goes anywhere but the gym and work over the summer. He'll be a senior in college this year. He doesn't socialize at all, or rarely at college, and stays in his room. I talked to him about standing up to his dad, but his response, he's done so much for me, meaning financially. An expert psychologist who testified at our custody trial said he should have been in counseling a long time ago, when all this was happening at a young age, and the divorce 14 years ago. First of all, I'm so sorry for the pain that your son is going through, Karen. And I am so sorry for the pain you're going through, because as a parent, to see our own children suffer is the worst, just the fucking worst. Or if you're a person who has animals that you loved like a child, it's in that ballpark, right? And you're saying, how do I convince my son, 21-year-old son, to go to counseling? You made a telling comment for me in what you said. You made the comment, I tried to talk to him about standing up to his dad, but his response is, he's done so much for me, meaning financially. Okay, a few things going on in that sentence. What your son needs to do is not have his actions directed. You said, I tried to talk to him about standing up to his dad. You were trying to get him to do something. All right. And he resisted you by saying, but dad's done so much for me. He's supported me financially. So first of all, he feels bad about confronting his father because he sees all the good dad has done. And so he feels bad, like he's unjustified in having his own feelings of any sort of negativity towards dad. But the issue I want to address with you asked what you should do. So I'm going to tell you what you should do. The telling part of the comment is actually the part that precedes that. Not when he says, dad's done so much for me. So he has guilt inside about mentioning anything about his parents. And let me tell you, I have clients in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 40s, 30s, 20s, all ages, who it can be like pulling teeth for me to get them to see the bad side of what their parents did, because they feel loyal, or, honor your father and mother, or, but it's my parents. And the truth is, to heal, all feelings must be welcome. Remember, folks, feelings are morally neutral. No feeling is inherently bad. What you do with it could then be dubbed bad, but feelings are natural responses to stimuli. They are the release of energy. They are the energy welling inside that long to be released. Sadness, anger, disappointment, whatever. They're just feelings. They're morally neutral, and he has feelings of love for his father and longing still to connect with his father, and he's always longing, to connect with mother as well. And so he feels bad mentioning the bad stuff dad has done or standing up to dad, and he's so broken down. You have to understand the idea of standing up to someone, Karen, when you've been abused in your childhood, the idea of standing up to you might as well be asking him to talk Martian and fly around with his feather wings. I mean, standing up for yourself when you've been abused, he's had his voice robbed from him. He's had his spirit broken. The notion of him being strong is, and I mean no disrespect here, I'm genuinely trying to help you solve this problem, is ludicrous. He hasn't. Nothing in him in terms of a sense of self. What he needs is not to stand up to his dad in this moment. What he needs first is to get all the pain out. What he needs is someone who will lead him into the trauma and hold his hand and begin to identify the problems and the pain of what was done to him. Not just the pain, but the problems and the core beliefs he was taught to believe about himself. But again, the piece that I want to address, Karen, you asked what you can do. You said, I tried to get him to stand up to his dad. What you're doing in that case is you're pushing him to take an action that you think he should take. That's what you can stop doing. You're trying to fix him by pushing him to take an action that he's not ready to take. What he needs is not to be pushed to take action. What he needs is to be encouraged to let his pain out. He's not at an action step other than feeling safe to let his pain out. And if he's like any 21-year-old or any 67-year-old that considers therapy, the last thing they want to do is go into the pain. I get clients all the time. I don't want to go into this pain. This sucks. I get people quitting therapy in the middle of a session. I'll get them not coming back. Is it because I suck as a therapist? Well, I'm sure for some it is. But more often than not, I know exactly what it is. Therapy is uncomfortable. It's scary. It's ugly, especially the deeper you go. Your son doesn't want to touch it. And here's the thing. I want you to think of it with young people this way. And this is one of the reasons that I very much screen who I work with when they're young, when they're under, say, 25. The reason is because I want you to think of emotional pain as a loan of $100,000. If you're 20 years old and you take out a loan of $100,000 because you want to start a business, okay? And I don't know who would ever give a loan of $100,000 to a 20-year-old, not the point. And you take out a loan of $100,000. Now, at 20 years old, $100,000 is a lot of fucking money. And you feel this giant weight on your back and it's heavy. And it's like, shit, I just want to work my ass off to get out from under this debt and make my business successful, right? So you feel the weight of that $100,000. But what do we know? We know the law of compound interest. But that compound interest not only applies to interest, but it also applies to debt. In other words, if I invested $100,000, I would be gaining money by the interest I would gain. But if I have a debt of $100,000 and I'm not paying down that debt, the interest was working against me. In other words, it's increasing my debt. So imagine that same $100,000, that same 20-year-old carrying that debt for the next 20 years and not making any fucking payments. Okay, I think we all know what's going to happen in the interest. By the time he gets to 40, you're going to have, a $500,000 debt, right? Because it's just going to keep growing interest that's working against you, right? Compound interest over 20 years. So in other words, what am I getting at? That $100,000 debt felt heavy when he was 20. Imagine carrying that for 20 more years, it hanging over your fucking head and it impacting all of your decisions. And you're still have it, and all of the decisions and all of your life and all of your relationships are being impacted by the fact that the pain of that is increasing the longer you carry it. When we're young, we still think we can carry it. When it comes, this is a metaphor for emotional soul pain. When we're young, we think, I can power through. There's so many gurus for young, especially young men saying, oh, you got to be tough. If you're a man, just carry it. Toughen up. Feelings are for wusses. Pack that shit down. Which is the dumbest shit ever, because that's what you're doing is you're fundamentally not making payments on that debt. And it's going to accrue, and you're going to get to 40 and you realize how much it's run you into the fucking ground, and you're not going to have any energy. Your son, what I'm getting at is your son at 20 years old still thinks he can power through it. It's killing him, and you see that it's killing him, but it's dragging him down. So what can you do? Stop pushing him to take action. The only thing you should be encouraging is giving him love, making him feel accepted, letting him know he can talk anytime he wants, and you will not try to fix him. Oh, it's hard, isn't it, as a parent? When your child discusses their problems, their issues, their struggles, their fears, we so want to fix them. And you want to know why we want to fix them? Not just to take them out of their pain, but the deeper issue is when someone I love is struggling, it creates anxiety in me and it chokes me and I can't breathe and I feel so anxious inside. So if I get their problem fixed, then my inner anxiety goes down. So I'm controlling external events as a way to decrease internal feelings. You see that? So when we have a 21-year-old son or daughter or whatever going through a problem, we want to fix their problems, especially since we're in the position of power. We say, just do what I say. That will make your problem go away. And then I, as a parent, won't feel so much fear that my son is struggling. Right. The last thing a child needs is to feel like they're being fixed. As my mother, who raised 6 children and was an expert in the field, literally a professor at the graduate level in the field of what? Early childhood education. She would always say, Sven, always remember, children want to be heard, not fixed. Children want to be heard, not fixed. And this is, folks, this is why your teenager is screaming to you, but you're not listening to me. Why don't you understand me? Why aren't you listening? It's because they want to be heard, not fixed. Heard, not fixed. And guess what happens? When you go to your best friend to talk out your shit because you got a really good friend who is a good listener, or you go to your favorite uncle who always listens well, why are you doing that? Because it feels good to get it out. You may not need your uncle's help on how to solve the actual problem. You just need help getting out all the shit. And you tend to see much more clearly when you've gotten out all your emotion, right? It's why people go to a therapist largely. Yes, at times we want help getting down to the root issue, but a lot of times we just want someone we can talk to. Your child needs that too. They need to feel heard. Stop fixing your fucking children. The solutions will become evident to them the more they're encouraged and given safe space to get their pain, their fears, their anxieties, their worries out of them. Next question. I'm just going to take a couple of more before we call it a day. Rob, go ahead.
Over on YouTube, A. Lemaster says, my spouse disregarded my emotional needs for years, and now I have PTSD with physical touch being a major trigger. Mm-hmm. How do I go about meeting my spouse's physical needs without triggering my major anxiety?
Well, first of all, unless you intend to do the work on your own through self-help, you need to be in with a therapist, because what you're needing, and if you do self-help, great, God bless you. And again, this is a perfect opportunity. This is definitely covered in the book. There's a hole in my love cup. It'll take you down into that shit and help you begin to identify it and sort through it with the questions, with the journaling recommendations, with the insights of the book. But you got to get down into it. Bottom line is, if I'm hearing it correctly, I basically can't touch my spouse without feeling activated inside from all the PTSD from the past shit. Is that right, Rob?
That's how I read it.
Right. And so what has to happen is the past shit has to come out of you. People say all the time, like regarding childhood stuff or past wounds in a relationship, they say, well, you can't rewrite the past. You can't go back and change the past. Yes, actually you can. Because your experience of that past, those memories have emotional charges attached to them, and of anger, of pain, of disappointment, of betrayal, of frustration, of rage, until you can go back into those memories and remove the emotional charge by what? By journaling, talking it out with your therapist, going deeper and deeper and deeper. That PTSD you have over that and not wanting to touch the person, I would convey it to the person, first of all, because of the stuff in the past. I'm really struggling with touch, but conveying it to the person doesn't solve the problem. The problem exists inside of you because of what was done to you, okay? And so you have to have the courage to go inside of you. And I'm inclined to think that you haven't done that yet, because it probably wouldn't be presenting as such this huge an issue if you had been going inside and going into the pain of it and feeling the pain and purging it in words. Because if you had to do it, you would see a reduction in that. And if you're not doing it, either A, no one has recommended that you do it, or B, you're deliberately avoiding going into the pain, which is very, very common. All of us are guilty of that at one time or another, or some people just choose to live that way. We run from that tidal wave of all of our pain and our memories and those emotional charges attached to the memories. We run from them. Why? They're fucking uncomfortable. We don't want to touch that shit. We don't want to feel that shit. But that's precisely where the answer is. The cure for the pain is in the pain, to quote the great Sufi poet Rumi. All right, I'm going to take, I think, just 2 more, then we're going to call it a day. How do you deal with an adult child who's becoming verbally abusive like his narcissistic father? You do not say whether or not you are still in a relationship with his narcissistic father, but I'm going to, for the moment, assume not. How do you deal with an adult child who's becoming verbally abusive like his narcissistic father? Him being like the narcissistic father really in this case doesn't really pertain to how you deal with them, except, well, I would ask the question, well, how did you deal with a narcissistic father? Or if the narcissistic father is still there, then you've got double the problem, right? But the bottom line is the way you deal with an adult child becoming verbally abusive is you shut that shit down. I don't care what fucking relationship you're in. Your boss, your coworker, your best friend, your spouse, acquaintance, the guy you bump into at the liquor store every time you're going back for your, bourbon. I don't care what it is. Being verbally abusive is not allowed. It's not okay. And when you say he's becoming, that implies it's still being allowed. Okay, this is red flag shit. If we were in a relationship and someone were starting to be, in small ways, verbally abusive, I would tell you, you have to shut it down now because little things become big things. And if you allow it now, even once, without it being called out and apology being expected and the person needing to atone for it, if you allow it more than once, if you allow it once, it's going to happen a second time. If you allow it more than once, you are creating a pattern. And you are in control of this situation. I will remind you that you are an adult and you have every right to draw a boundary. You are not in any way indebted to a person such that they are allowed to abuse you. You said you use the word abuse, verbally abusive. You have to shut it down and not allow it. And you have to do that every fucking time. And the truth is, if you are still in relationship with his narcissistic father, you have to shut it down and not allow it. And furthermore, if you are with two people who are verbally abusing you, you need to get the fuck out. That's beyond fucking repair. Furthermore, if you're allowing people to treat you this way, that implies that there is emotional fear, likely there's dominance and, terrified and shit, which means you wouldn't even find the strength to stand up and continue to stand up to change a behavior pattern. You have to understand, people. If you want to change a behavior pattern in someone else, you're going to have to stand up to them every single time. That's why waiting for a partner to change who maybe cheated on you or waiting for an extreme giver, what a lot of folks call a narcissist, to change, saying, oh, I changed. It doesn't matter if they've changed. What matters is, have you changed? Have you done the work on you? Because you're the one who is going to have to maintain that boundary every single fucking time. And if you allowed it a bunch of times in the past, and I'm not saying they aren't an asshole, I'm not blaming the victim, I'm saying the victim moving forward has to begin to create boundaries and stand up for themselves. And if you're not willing to call it out, if you don't have the strength, if you haven't done the work on yourself, you have to call it out every single time, then you're not ready. It's not a matter of you letting them back. You shouldn't let yourself in because you're not ready. You're not strong enough. You have to be at the point where you value yourself so much, you stand up for yourself so much that you do not allow anyone to abuse you. Folks, that's so hard. It can be so hard if you're used to giving. If you've come from a belief system where you were taught that you're not important or you don't matter or you're not worth standing up for. It's so hard, but that's where it starts. You have to stand up for yourself at every turn. And if you're not able to do it, you need to be doing the work of going back into your past to determine what the hell you were taught about yourself, because this goes to core beliefs shit. This is the shit you were taught about yourself that is undermining your own sense of belief in self and that is keeping you from standing up for yourself. All right, get the book. There's a Hole in My Love Cup. Spanish version is available. Badasscounseling.com. Rob, did you have something you want to say?
Just a quick question if you'd like.
Yes, please.
All right. I want to have less time between journaling sessions, but it fucking hurts. Any advice for jumping back in faster?
The journaling and self-help is one of those things I always tell people. That's actually an excellent question. We've never had that question on the show. Good call, Rob. And thank you for whoever wrote in. By the way, have you kept your eye out for that one guy who was going to write in?
Nothing. Yeah,
nothing.
Silence.
Fair
yeah.
enough.
Yeah, this is Justin asked this question.
Justin. All right. And Justin's basically asking, I want to hit it harder. I want to attack harder in my journaling and get into it more and more.
Faster.
But it just fucking hurts. Yeah. And this is the nature of the beast. I always tell people when they're doing self-help work or even reading my books, just take your time. There's no rush. And some people say, but I want to get it out of me. I want to work harder. Or do the work that you're capable of doing. And very often if someone is really wanting to hit the finish line, they're not wanting to sit in it. I want it to be done so that I don't have to be in it. Now, obviously, that's what we all want. We don't want to sit in the pain. We don't want to feel these feelings. But if I'm rushing too hastily, I'm doing it to avoid this part of sitting in it, Justin. And I know this may sound crazy, but you got to be willing to sit in it. Because the truth is, if you're moving too quickly, very often you're missing You're not experiencing it in its totality. When we were kids around the table, all 6 of us kids, Mom would often say, and I asked my siblings about this recently, and only one of them remembered Mom saying it, but I used to hear Mom say it a lot, so probably it was me. But she'd always say, slow down, eat slower, you'll enjoy it more if you eat slower. And you know what? Fucking hell, she was right. Now, it could be that she was wanting us to slow down so we wouldn't eat so much food because she had 5 boys and 1 girl, and we were all fucking pigs. You reduce that food bill. But the point is, you have to slow down. You have to sit in it. And I know you want the results, but one of the things you've heard me say before, Justin, probably if you follow my show and you're reading my book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup or Badass Wisdom, is that change can be immediate. Transformation can be immediate, like really fast. Maybe not exactly today, but it can be immediate if you go deep enough. So it could very well be, Justin, that you're sacrificing depth for breadth. You're choosing speed over depth, and nothing will heal you faster than depth. Nothing. Going deeper, staying in it, going deeper, and it is going to have a residual or an immediate emotional effect. And that is part of the release. That is part of the healing. And you've got to allow that. Rob, you got to follow up, it looks like? No. And you've got to allow that. And you got to sit in it and just keep going back when you're ready. And the way you speed up your healing process, folks, is by going deeper. And this is why depth counseling and the deep questioning and challenging yourself and pushing harder always brings about, if healing's going to come, it's going to come quicker by going deeper, not staying on the surface. Rob?
I do have a follow-up. Justin says, never thought of it that way. Thank you, with a heart.
Yeah, you're welcome, Justin. Thank you. And remember, guys, all of you, depth beats breadth. Depth beats speed. Depth creates speed. I literally had yesterday was Friday. I had a client yesterday. Thursday, I had 2 clients for 10 hours total. One was a 6, one was a 4. I had one on Friday, and it was a 6, and it ran to 6.5.
You're talking about hours, just to be clear.
Yeah, counseling hours. Yeah, no. This client, I would dub him a 6.5.
I was concerned about how that sounded.
Yeah, he's kind of a douche. So he's not an 8, definitely not a 10. No, hours. And what I see in my counseling, because I take my clients so fucking deep, like they've never done, even if they've been doing counseling for years, I go so fucking deep, and I know what I'm looking for, and I know what needs to be spent time on. I don't let them ramble on and on with stories. I don't want to hear about their week unless there was some insight, but I go deep and deep. And so they'll have revelations in session, even a first session, deep revelations, powerful shit. That's the beauty of depth in your work. All right, I'm going to take one last question, then we're going to call it a day, fine people. How do you start to trust others after a lifetime of abuse from multiple people? Pretty much every one of us has been in relationships that were painful. And many of us have been in relationships that were abusively painful or painful because of abuse. And then there are those souls that have been through abuse from multiple people. All right, so we're seeing a compounding of the problem. And the bottom line is you're asking, how do I trust when all of this has happened? Trust is a natural human action. We naturally trust, just like we naturally fear. Those are natural human feelings. And you're wondering, how do I act on trust? How do I feel the trust and act on the trust when I've had so much in the past? If you are at the point of either incapable of or not wanting to trust again, when it's a natural human response, it's because there's so much fucking pain that's blocking you and driving intense fucking fear, right? I mean, come on. If you've been cheated on, shit, yeah, you're afraid of trusting. If you've had somebody steal money from you, fuck yeah, you're afraid of trusting. If you've had a doctor give you bad advice, fuck yeah, you're afraid of trusting, and you're going to want other advice, or a dentist, or whatever, a chiropractor. If you, had somebody do work on your house, we had somebody do work on our roof 5-6 years ago. Then we had to bring that guy back again. Still, we had a leaking problem around our chimney. Then we had to bring him back again for threatening of suing him because he wasn't fixing the problem. Then we brought in someone else who said it's this other problem. They tried to fix it, didn't fix it. We start to distrust everything coming out of a roofer's mouth, even though I have friends who are roofers. No kidding. Depending on where you're at in the United States, it's a roof. Where I'm from, it's a roof. Sorry. Anyway, and a dog says rough. Anyway, The point is this, the pain has to come out. You will begin to trust effortlessly the more you get the pain and the fears out of you. All that abuse caused pain. All of it triggered fear. And justifiably so. You have every right to feel that, have that pain. But that has to come out of you, Krista. And that means going into it. That means calling those feelings up, calling those memories up, welcoming them. Because if they're still there, that means some of them have not been welcomed. And it's the act of welcoming. There's a phrase, what we resist persists. What we allow passes. I want you guys, this is going to be the final thought of the day. Some of you have heard me say this before, and I teach every single one of my clients this, and it's simply this. Feelings are morally neutral. But more than that, feelings have a trajectory. Think about it. If your team, your soccer team, your football team is in the second half and you're up by, 3 points in American football, let's just stick with one sport. Okay, your hockey team is up by 1 point. All right, and it's the third period, final period. Hockey, they only play 3 periods. And then it's going on, and then the opposing team, they score a goal. And it's like, oh, the excitement. We're so close, we're there. And for the third period is wearing on, and then your team scores a goal, and then scores another one in rapid fire. We're up by 2. Oh, man, we're getting excited. There's only 2 minutes left, and it's getting exciting. The euphoria is starting to build. The excitement is starting to build. And then we're down in the final 30 seconds. The other team scores a goal. Oh, shit. There's 25 seconds left. Everybody's getting excited. The whole place is crazy. We're still up by a goal. And then, they don't do whistles in hockey. They do those loud fucking buzzers. And the game's over. We won. Absolute euphoria, madness. You're hugging people you would normally never hug, like your stinky brother-in-law, whatever it is. Oh, the euphoria. Okay. And then an hour later, when you're out for pizza with your buddies and you're just loving the fucking game and you're having beers and you're still in the euphoric state, but it's a little less than right when it hit at the end of the third period. And then you go to sleep and you kiss your wife goodnight. You say, honey, we won. And she's like, I'm so happy for you. I have no idea what you're talking about and I don't care. And then the next morning you wake up happy, but you go mow the lawn. And then by Monday morning when it's time to go back to work, you've sort of forgotten about it. The euphoria is gone. Feelings have a trajectory. They have a natural course that when a feeling is allowed and allowed to come out, it comes, it peaks, and it goes. That's the natural trajectory of every feeling. Some are more intense and they last longer. If your team wins the World Cup, if in America, if your football team wins the Super Bowl, which my team, the Minnesota Vikings, has never done, one of the highest winning percentages in all of NFL. We've never won it. If they win, you know how long I could go? I could go the rest of my life and never have another winning season because I'd still have one, right? All right. So some euphorias can last longer. Some pain of being left or pain of a certain death can last longer. But the point is their natural trajectory is they will leave if they are allowed to come in. I want you to think of trains. What do trains do? Trains come into a station. They let people off the train. They let people on the train, they refuel the train, and they leave the station, chugga, 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 till eventually they're just a dot on the horizon, and then poof, it's gone. That's what trains do. That's what feelings do. Feelings that are allowed to come and tarry and stay in you. The people leave the train, they get on to the train, the feeling stays, and then it leaves the station, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So every single feeling you feel is a normal, natural response, including hatred. If somebody came in right now and started walloping on, just pounding the living hell out of somebody who's maybe your fragile, 83-year-old mother, or maybe your child, and just started wailing on them, you cannot tell me you wouldn't feel hatred in that moment and go and try to claw their eyes out or get them to stop or whatever. You can't tell me because that is a natural response. Now, whether or not you claw their eyes out or take physical response, that's what makes it morally good or morally bad, or legally good or legally bad. But the feeling itself is a natural response. And I can get my feelings out through journaling or with my therapist or talking to my favorite uncle or whatever. That's another way to get it out. But if I don't allow feelings, if you were taught as a child that your feelings are not allowed, or that your anger is not allowed, maybe it was a specific feeling, your happiness is not allowed, and I'm going to undercut you because you don't get to feel happy because I don't like you, my child, or whatever. Yes, those homes exist. So if you weren't allowed to let the trains into the station, then you've got a backup of trains from a lifetime. You got a vault full of feelings. And what happens when all those trains back up? Well, the diesel fuel starts to spill out. You got people cramped up in these trains, and there's anxiety and tension and so on and so forth. You have to begin to allow the trains into the station. Let it out, let the people in, get the train on the tracks, but you have to allow the feelings. And until you can allow the feelings and have a means for flushing them out, getting them fueled up and out of the station, until you can do that, you're going to have more fucking problems than you know what to do with, especially in your parenting. So that's all I have to say about that, fine humans. Guess what starts in about 1 minute when the show is done? My vacation. 3 weeks, people, but you'll still hear from me because we've been taping in advance. Hey. KC is cheering. Rob, bring this, put a ribbon on this. Let's talk, Rob.
Well, Minnesota, as usual, you've gotten to the root of the issues.
Well played.
Now give us a recipe for a hot dish.
Well, I tell you, there's a very simple one. Tater tot hot dish, which I only learned later in life. My mom had a great goulash. I loved her goulash. You can look that up, goulash. But a simple tater tot recipe is you take freaking ground beef, and you put it in the bottom of a casserole pan, like a Pyrex, something like that, square one. You get some ground beef, pound of ground beef, put it on the bottom. Then you get a can of either cream of mushroom soup or cream of mushroom soup. 1 can in there, pour that right over it. And then you get a can of, so this is first simple. This is total bachelor, nothing fresh here, right? And you open a can of like string beans or French cut string beans. You drain it, and then you pour all those over the cream of mushroom soup. And then you get some frozen tater tots, and you put those next to each other, covering the whole top of the surface. And then you get a little bit of paprika, and you sprinkle the paprika. Some people then like to put grated cheese over the top. That's an optional thing, where you can add the grated cheese later or not at all. You put that in a 350 oven for about 30 minutes, and guess what? Voila. You have the best, and if you want to add a little salt, pepper, you probably should. I'm no chef. But you will have the best, easiest, yummiest, filling, winterest hot dish that you have ever had. That's my recipe for, as you say, quote unquote, casserole, whatever that is.
That's good eating.
Them's good eats. So before I depart, I can only say Minnesota State Fair, I'm coming. Line and Cool's beer, which I can't get out on the East Coast unless it's the summer shandy, but I like their regular. I'm going to have, you folks have never in your entire life had sweet corn, had corn on the cob like Minnesota sweet corn, and I'm going to have it by 7 a.m. about 36 hours from now. Also, I'm going to have Tiny Tim donuts, which I prefer over the Tom Thumb mini donuts. And so many yummy things. I'm going to be in the food barn. I'm going to be in the dairy barn. I'm going to see, they do butter carvings of giant blocks of butter of all the young women from all the rural counties. They come and compete for Princess K of the Milky Way. And one of the things they have is they have this large refrigerated circulating glass enclosure about 10 feet across, 10 feet in diameter. And you sit in there while a sculptor is carving out of a giant block of butter this princess's face into a block of butter. So then all these girls competing for Princess K of the Milky Way, you can see their sculpture, their face sculpted in butter. We go through the cow barns. We visit the cows. We talk to the farmers from Polk County or from Becker County or my hometown, Lake Park, Minnesota. We talk to the farmers. We talk to their kids. Those kids raise little sows, or little pigs. They raise them from when they're young. And then at the end of the fair, they come to compete, because if your farm gets like ribbons and stuff, Rob, that looks good for your farm. But then these kids got to send that pig that they sleep in the same pen sometimes at the state fair. They send that pig off to slaughter. And so you talk to these young kids. It's fascinating. That juxtaposition of loving it, knowing you're sending it to slaughter, and the insights of these young teenagers, pre-teens, and the competitions and the goat competitions. And then you go up on Machinery Hill and you sit in the tractors. I brought my girlfriend there. She's a pacifist, sort of. And I took her to the National Guard booth, and she got to hold a bazooka on her shoulder. I got pictures of that. That's one of my favorites. All sorts of fun shit. So if you are in a state in the U.S. that has a state fair, go. If you are in the Midwest, Iowa has a great one. Wisconsin has a great one. But of course, Minnesota is the best in the country, the largest one. Texas is bigger, but they stay open 10 days longer. And thus, per day basis, ours is bigger and better. Yes, that is the great state of Minnesota. That's all I have to say, people.
So they raise the pigs and then they kill them.
Well, how else are you going to have bacon?
You always hurt the one you love.
Well played, Rob. That is the way to end the show. My fine people, all you badasses around the world, it's just such a treat. Thank you for trusting us with our questions. On behalf of the team here, have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.